you. Thank you for having me.
I'm going to tell you something, Kara. I reread your book again, and I was like, oh,
Oh,
I don't want you to go on sabbatical.
thank you. Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
We won't go there. But I was like, wow, I love the energy of your book.
Oh, thank you.
I love how you speak to people. There's some things that you said. I realized I just spoke in a podcast episode in the last few weeks. I'm like, I think we think similarly. So it's pretty cool.
Kindred spirits, for sure. Yeah.
Lovely to have you here. Hey, Marissa.
Oh, thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
So Kara Anderson is hilarious, first of all. She'll be on the Homeschool Mom Stand-Up Tour and soft-spoken. I'm sure her children would agree.
Yeah, but actually sometimes I'm too soft-spoken. So if you have trouble hearing me, you have to say like, speak louder, even though I cleared out a space in my office and now I have an echo. So I'm like, I just cannot get it right with the audio, but we'll do the best we can.
Yeah. I actually usually am in my closet because that's the Homeschool Mom studio.
Yeah. Yeah. That works well though for like podcasts and things. Yeah.
It does work
for
well.
sure. Yeah.
So Marissa is in Canada, I'm in Canada, and you are, I actually forget what part of the United States you're in right now.
I'm in Illinois.
Illinois, right.
So kind of right in the middle.
So you can go to all the conferences.
It's just corn for as far as the eye can see right now.
Yes.
Just corn everywhere. Have you seen the viral video with
I
the
was
little
going to
kid
say,
with the corn?
did you see the video? Of course I did. I have a 13-year-old boy.
Yeah, I feel like he's probably my neighbor because yeah, we're just corn right now.
That's awesome. That's so funny.
Yeah.
So that zone, or actually I was going to say, I'm teasing you about the conferences because I remember that you said you're an INFJ.
Yes. Yep. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
am I. That's wild.
Yeah.
We're both,
Yeah.
I'm kind of on the other side, just barely on the extroverted side. So I know how to be with people, but I mostly don't want to be. You're welcome. You feel me, Marissa?
Yes. Yeah.
Definitely.
I've heard INFJs described as the extroverted introverts.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah.
I love people. I want to make them
We
feel
can-
comfortable.
Yeah. We can
Not all day
extrovert
long.
for a little while and then we don't want to anymore. And it takes like 2 days to recover. So
Yeah. So not a lot of conferences for you then?
not for the next little while. No, I'm taking a break from traveling and all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
So tell me, now that you've been sitting with your book for so long and you've probably had tons of interviews and lots of discussion around it, what are the themes or the elements of your book that you really want people to hear?
Ooh, okay. Well, I mean, it's going to sound super obvious from the title, but the big thing is that I keep hearing from homeschool parents that they worry that they're not doing enough, that their family isn't something enough, that the mom or the dad, whoever is teaching, is not fill in the blank enough. Like, I wish I was more organized, or I wish I was more, did better art projects or things like that. Or they worry that their kids aren't enough for some reason, because usually what it comes down to is that the curriculum isn't working.
She'll come back.
In those kinds of scenarios, it looks like oh, am I frozen?
You're back.
Oh no. Okay, I'm back.
It
What
happened.
I was saying.
It's
What was
the
I talking
corn.
about?
You're talking about how we don't feel enough.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
think I was going on about we look at the curriculum website and we think that it's like we're supposed to be able to replicate that in our homes because they got people to pose for pictures and it all looks really nice and that's all good and everything. And then we get home and we have our actual lives and our actual kids and it doesn't look like that. And then we think that it's a failing on our part or our kids' part. And it's probably just not the right curriculum fit for us, or it's not the right day, or we need to all go out for ice cream and start over. So I think the big thing really is just, we get so many messages from social media, we can't help but compare, and we worry that we're not doing enough or that we aren't enough. And that's not the case. The case is that we're inundated with, Theodore Roosevelt said comparison is the thief of joy. And I believe that strongly. So, we're sort of like inundated with all these ideas and things. It's just, you know, we can never be the sum total of all the ideas that we can collect
Yeah.
on homeschooling. That's never going to happen. So instead, we are exactly what our kids need, and our kids are exactly what we need too.
Wow.
A lot of times they stretch us in ways. I've learned a lot of things that I did not think I was going to care deeply about.
And you're not talking about Minecraft, you're talking about other things.
Well, Minecraft, Pokemon, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. We had a summer of like Pokemon Go that was really intense. And I was, I think more into it than the kids were at one point. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely those kinds of things, but then there's, the different interests, music, and we went through like this bird phase in our home where we learned all about bird calls and
Yeah.
migration patterns and what kind of birds were extinct, and and so much about woodpeckers I can't even tell you. And yeah, so a lot of things that have stretched me, which has been really good. I like learning,
Yeah. An often common denominator for parents, for sure, homeschool parents. But when you talk about that enough thing, I actually think even if you deleted homeschooling, just as mothers, there is such a social messaging that says you're supposed to do these millions of things so that you can turn out this perfect product. And that concept, I think, is so not useful for anybody, because we'll probably have one of our 3 or 4, I have 4 kids that is compliant and seems to take to everything we suggest. And we're like, great, that's the homeschool ideal. Now, but we also have the other kids that are like, yeah, I don't think so. Or they don't totally say it out loud, but they don't like it. Or there's the one that definitely voices it. And it's like, everything about this is wrong. I don't like this. And so then you feel like you're not enough because you're not always getting everything they want.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's so true about just parenting in general. Feels like
Yeah.
an insurmountable mountain that how are we ever supposed to get to the top of this thing? And then and so that just that part is hard. Just raising humans is hard. And then we've added another layer to the I always think of that trifle from Friends, the beef, carrots, and onions, or beef, peas, and onions. And I don't know if you guys have seen that or not.
I should totally know this. I've watched all of them a few times. We are of that generation. Yes.
Yeah, Rachel makes the trifle, and it's like jam and ladyfingers and whipped cream that she made from scratch, and then a layer of beef, peas, and onions because 2 of the cookbook pages got stuck together. So. But yeah, so we've added this whole extra thing on top of all the other stuff, which is just today it was orthodontist appointments and a call from my son at college where he's trying to figure something out, and so that's plenty. And then and then we're like, oh yeah, by the way, we're going to take on the entire weight of our kids' education.
Yes,
that'll be fun, and yeah, it's a lot to put on ourselves for sure.
You have so many funny stories in your book. It's one about Aunt Diane. I have an Aunt Diane, by the way. But she's really nice. She's lovely. She's lovely. Never really talked about homeschooling. She's talked about other things, but I won't go there publicly recording. But okay, go away from that. Yes, okay, tell myself to go away. Anyways, Aunt Diane has her opinions of your homeschool choice. And you have to render the notion that Aunt Diane is not affirming everything that you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it might not be an aunt, it might be a mother, a mother-in-law, a
Mother-in-law.
father-in-law,
Yeah.
a cousin, where you just feel like you're constantly needing to defend your choice to homeschool to them, and it's just so hard. It's so defeating because I mean, trying to win somebody over is like it's exhausting,
Mhm.
trying especially because whatever opinions they have come from their life experience, their background, their, maybe they wanted to homeschool their kids, but they wouldn't have been able to, or maybe they feel like you're judging them because they send their kids to public school and you're not judging them, you're not homeschooling at them. I like to say you're just homeschooling. And so, yeah, that's really hard when we run into people who are questioning us because I think we already question ourselves enough. We already worry enough to cover it for like several lifespans of our kids. Like we already carry enough worry, and then somebody keeps coming at you with these new worries. Like, well, what about prom? And it's like, well, they're 4, so
Here's my 3-point essay. Yeah.
yeah,
I
we're not going to
definitely
worry
did
about
that.
prom just yet. Or
Yeah. No calculus. She's 5. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I sometimes think that we're hearing those not enough messages because we already, like you said, we already are challenged by it inside of us. And, we wonder, is it enough? But I loved how you were talking about really you can't do it all. Like it's just not possible. And so what would be the
Yeah.
point of it? And it's the same
Yeah.
thing with assuming we have 84 years to live or whatever the average is now, but we still can't do every single thing. We either hope to be reincarnated or just accept the reality that this is the life that we're living. And so we can only do so many things in this life. And that also includes what we can include in the homeschool routine or in our activities.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're human, and I was just listening to a talk yesterday about how our limitations are what make us beautifully human, because we like you said, what would be the point if we could do everything? I mean, I think that's why so many vampires are cranky on TV shows, they've just had too many lifetimes. Everything is boring. They've done it already. And so, we have 24 hours in a day. We are one person. We only have so much time, energy, money, resources. And a lot of us, I find, are kind of lone wolfing it, especially in the beginning, like we haven't found anybody else yet. And so we
Right.
are just literally kind of hanging on by our fingernails. And it's, I have a story on my blog about how I actually quit homeschooling
Yeah.
once
Yeah.
when my son was 4. I mean, we had barely started, but it all started because he had gotten in trouble because he didn't want to sit on the line during story time in preschool because they had this really cool McDonald's playset and he wanted to play with that instead of sitting there listening during story time. And so I thought, well, we'll try homeschooling. We'll see what happens. And all of a sudden I'm reading books and he's climbing and he's playing and he's moving stuff around and he's just constantly like in motion, but he was following everything that was happening in the book. He just
Yeah.
needed to be in motion in order
Yeah.
to and so but I felt like by Christmas of that first year, I thought before Christmas even, like early December, I was like, I'm messing this kid up for life. Like I don't know what I'm doing. And so I called the little Montessori preschool and I said, hey, do you have like midterm enrollment in January? And they said yes, because they were happy to take my money. And so he did that for a little while. And then we tried again because during that break, he was 4, he turned 5 that February. and they said that he was an early reader, so they wanted him to work on handwriting all summer so that they could bump him up into the 6 to 9-year-old classroom
Oh,
when he returned in the fall. And I thought that's going to be a truly awful summer because his fine motor skills were just not there yet to do
right.
handwriting. And
He's 5.
so, yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And he was just an active little kid and we
Yeah.
just needed to move. And so we ended up, I said, okay, we're going to try again, but this time we're not going to try to do everything.
And then you discovered that was what you should have done the entire time.
Yes, but still,
Wow.
it was like this long process of like peeling back, peeling back, peeling back. You know the book
Yeah.
Essentialism?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I read it
it's like,
before you. Yeah. I loved
yeah,
it. I cited that.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite books, and
Yeah.
it's you know, it has nothing to do with homeschooling and yet everything to do with
Yeah.
homeschooling because it's
Exactly.
like, you just need to keep peeling back until you get to the point where it's like this is sustainable, this is manageable, like this is
Because it's true, whatever it is. It's like very authentic to who you are and what you're supposed to be doing right now. And all the other stuff is just other stuff other people are doing.
right. Yeah, yeah, for
Or
sure. And
yeah.
we need to figure out what works for our families, and it's
Mhm.
not going to look like what works for other families, and it's especially not going to look like what it looks like, when you're scrolling and it's like, okay,
Yeah.
this person just baked this beautiful birthday cake, and this person just redid their whole house, and this person is raising chickens, and this person does these really cool hands-on art projects, and this person does science with their kids, and you're just looking at all of it, and you're like, I have to do all of that
Yes.
this week,
Yes.
and it's like,
Yeah.
no, 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 no. I mean, I really like going back through old photos on my phone and seeing that, yeah, we did an art project,
But
and then we didn't for a while, and then we did a science experiment, and then we didn't for a while.
exactly.
But the sum total, the whole big picture is that we have done plenty. We've done
Yeah.
enough, but it's it doesn't always look like it on a random Tuesday, when you
Yeah.
feel like it's pulling teeth just to get your kids to sit down and
So how do
do
you
like
get,
one math problem.
yeah, one math problem, it depends on the child, right? Um,
Mhm.
or to get you to do the math problem. Because I heard your relationship to math sounds very similar to mine.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
why you outsource some stuff when you really know that
Mhm.
that's not your thing, or you have to
Yeah.
relearn it. But that can be challenging when you're relearning it while you're trying to teach your child. I've been there.
Oh man.
I know
Yeah.
you can do
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Mhm.
So when we're talking about oh, I lost my train of thought. Whatever we were just speaking to, how do you direct homeschool parents to feel enough? Like, what should they tangibly do to feel enough?
Mm. It's really good because it's going to be different for every person, right? Because we all have different priorities and things that are important for our families. In some families, it might be learning about your cultural heritage. In some families, it might be, my friend Mary Wilson,
Mhm.
who fun is like one of
Yeah.
her priorities, and it's also
Yeah.
one of her strengths. And
Mhm.
sometimes I'm like, I want to be Mary Wilson's child. I don't want to be the homeschool mom. I want to actually be one of Mary's kids because
Yeah.
then I would just get to like play and do these fun book clubs and activities. And she has these cool like classes on Outschool, and like she's so
She's
creative
fun.
like that.
She's an Enneagram
Yeah,
7.
she's
Yeah.
fun. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
She's a 7. Yeah, but I'm not like that. I'm also not
Me
a
neither.
naturally organized person. I have a real issue with organization. And so, it's different for different people, and it's also we all have different strengths and weaknesses. And I think that it's important to acknowledge that we all have different strengths and weaknesses, even the ladies on the internet who, are I seem to be picking on social media a lot today. I don't mean to, but I think it's just hard when we see everybody's best and brightest.
Yeah. It's true
We
though.
we
Yeah.
don't see the the fact that right now, currently, I have dishes in my sink.
I can't
Um,
tell.
the dining room table
Yeah.
is covered in nothing dining related, and yeah, I mean,
And you
so
just shift the computer and then you're good.
right. I
Or
think that's
blur it.
one of the things that if you can be flexible, that's far more valuable in homeschooling than being a lot of other things that we think we need to be.
I am not naturally flexible.
Yeah,
Everyone
I
knows.
know. It's not easy.
Oh, you grow
It's one of
into
those things. It's simple in theory,
theory.
not easy in practice because, in practice, it's like just sit down and do the one page of whatever I want you to do, and then
And
it'll
I'll
be
feel
good.
good.
And yeah,
Yeah.
right. Like
It's all about me.
yeah, I can check that box, and then I will feel better, and yeah. But our kids don't have checklists in their brains like we do. They um if they've homeschooled the whole time, they've grown up in a world without a lot of checklists. So
Yeah.
to them, it's like, why is this so important that we do this at 10 a.m.? Why is this such a big deal to you? Which is where my whole idea of cactus schooling came from, which I have a post about that over on my blog about making a plan but holding it loosely, like you'd hold a
Yeah.
cactus.
Yeah.
Because
That's good.
for our kids, I can't tell you how many mornings they woke up and were like, I want to make a lightsaber. And I was like, okay, yeah,
Here's the
of course you do.
yes, of course. How do we incorporate this into a unit?
Yeah, exactly.
How do
Exactly.
I create
Okay,
a
so
learning outcome around this? Can we write
yeah,
a paragraph about this? Yeah.
how do I suck all the natural joy and passion and fun out of this so that I can check my box, when the truth is, like, no, we went to the hardware store and he picked up a bunch of stuff, and I don't know what he learned about things, but
Physics, something
he
physics.
was
Yeah.
he was really, really, really proud of that lightsaber.
So, yeah, when you were talking about your planning, what did you call it? Your
Cactus schooling.
page one of my notes. Your I take notes and then I never look down. Your BPP. So it's like,
Oh yeah.
yeah. How do you do
Yeah.
that? I have a little red notebook that I've written in ideas for each of my kids for many years. And then I go back to it, and like in July and August, like I have the full plan. It's all going to happen every day. And then
Yeah.
I'm like, blah, by October,
Yeah.
whatever. Some I do, some I don't. What do you do?
Yeah. Well, and that's the whole idea of it's the big picture planning page. And I tried to, when I was reading the audiobook for recording, I was trying to say BPP and the beep and the BPPP, and it ended up being like I could not get it out of my face. Like, I don't know what was happening. So I had to change it. So if you listen to the audio version, I say like big picture planning page instead, which seems like it would be much harder to say, but it wasn't at the time. And so the BPP, I don't know. Anyway, it is, I have a bullet journal. And so that's how I do it. And I just have a page in my bullet journal that I write like, these are my big picture plans. And so when I see something that's really cool that I'm like, oh, I would love to do that, or one of my kids would love to do that, I write it down there. And then I look at it about every 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
I like to think that I look at things monthly, but honestly, it's more like 6 weeks for us. And that's just kind of the rhythm we've fallen into. And it works fine, but it's not, I wanted it to be a monthly thing where I would check it again, being flexible, right? But so I check that page and I think like, oh yeah, oh, okay, wait, this would be a great time to do that field trip, or this would be a good time to do that art project, or whatever it is. Or I think paper mache. I don't ever want to do paper mache. Like
Never.
it's
There's
just
never a space for that. No.
going to be a huge mess. And like, have you learned nothing over the years? And so, then I'll go, okay, cross that out. It seemed like a good idea at the time, but I think the magic of it is the putting things down on paper so you don't have to hold on to them in your head,
Yeah.
you know?
And you always have an
I
idea
mean,
book.
yeah, for me, that's really hard to think, well, what was it? Last month, I saw something that looked like it would be really fun. What was it? And, I can remember because you've got life and responsibilities and kids and pets and broken cars and dishwashers and toilets and like things go wrong. So like being able to just have a place where you write everything down
Yeah.
and keep those ideas, and then you can move them to like your monthly plan or however. I don't do a year plan. I tried that when my kids were little, and we would just have it never worked for us. So, like I said, we kind of check in about every 4 to 6 weeks. Like, where are we at with things?
Yeah.
What do we need more of? What have we not done, in a while? And then I can look and go, oh, okay, perfect. All right, I've got something for geography, and then we do it that way. And you can do that even with books that you see or anything. That
Between
would
you and
be
me, we could make a full
helpful.
school, I think, just based on unit studies. I literally could
Yeah.
pull out any book and make some sort of
Mhm.
activity out of that. That's how skilled you get with certain, whatever curriculum. Marissa, you're welcome to jump in and ask any questions you want to as well. Because Kara has said that she does 6-week unit studies, is what I remember hearing. And they usually focus on, so you probably go in all sorts of
Yeah.
directions.
Well, sort of unit
Ish.
studies, sort of just interest
Cool.
led.
Yes. Yeah.
A lot of times it's more my kids will hit on something and like we a couple years ago, last year maybe, it was forensic science. My daughter got super
Yeah, we
interested
did
in
that too.
forensic science,
Yeah.
and so that was one of those that started out where I thought, okay, I went to Home Science Tools, I
Yeah.
got a kit, it was really cool, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna like figure out what blood type we are. All
Yeah.
right, great. And then she was like, more.
Yeah.
This is amazing, more. And so I'm like, okay, fingerprint kit. Okay, then. And then they had this whole thing that was like a who stole the diamonds, and you were doing like uh fabric samples and
Right.
fibers
Yeah.
and fingerprints and handwriting analysis and this whole thing. And so, we just kept going with it. So sometimes, we start something like that and it's like, okay, yeah, it'll be 6 weeks, and then it's actually pretty much the entire school year. And then other times it's like, I think the important thing is like you can't you can't do it all. So like what I used to do was I would start out and I would try to plan our entire homeschool year. And
Yeah.
then my kids would get interested in something. And then I would still keep trying to do
Mhm.
whatever I had planned,
'Cause it
even
was
though they
expensive.
were right, even though they were so obsessed with whatever else. All they
Yeah.
wanted to learn about was XYZ. So it was like, I'm trying to, is it Katrina Goodelben who says, trying to force your kids to learn something is like throwing marshmallows at their head. Like
They come
they're not
with
gonna
the
eat
heat.
them or yeah, something
Yeah.
about that.
That was
So
such a
yeah,
good
it's
quote.
like
Yeah.
that. And so then I said, okay, we're gonna switch the approach. I'm not going to buy everything at once. I
Smart.
came up with a new plan because if you're in the homeschool world very long, you hear about how November and February are like the worst 2 months usually, because by November, like all the novelty of everything has worn off and you're just like, how do I get to Christmas?
Yeah.
And February is just gray and
Yeah.
blah and hard, and you have already had Christmas and it's just cold and you're all just ready for like the tiniest little envelope, and I put money aside in February in a little envelope. And I called them November slump and February hell. And it just said my internet was unstable. Is it okay?
Yeah, it is now.
Okay. Okay.
November
Yeah.
slump month, February hell. That's good.
Yes. Yes. So I had the two envelopes and I called them November slump and February hell. And so then I would have my homeschool budget not all spent at the beginning of the year. And then we
Right.
could pull that out and do fun things. And
Yeah.
then from there, because it just evolves. I mean, how long have you been homeschooling?
Totally true. I forget.
Yeah.
It's somewhere 15 to 17 years, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think everybody by this point is definitely eclectic. Um,
Mhm.
but I refuse
Yeah.
to own a particular path. And yet most of the keywords in my website are that are anything homeschool related are child-led learning focused.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
definitely felt freed from all sorts of educational concepts when I met John Taylor Gatto and John Holt.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Like met them through their books or
no.
met them, like went to a thing and met them.
Spiritually, I met them on the
Oh,
way.
okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
When I
Gotcha.
was
Yeah.
introduced to all the things
Yeah.
that they thought, because just like you, like for
Yeah.
so long, all I wanted to do was whatever my routine was, because I started with Susan Weiss Bauer's Well-Trained Mind and
Mhm.
tried to make that a reality. My 6 and 8-year-old remember, even my most academic kiddo, who is at that time my second daughter, she was like, Mom, I can't believe you made us do all of that. And I'm like, thought I was doing right by you. So we had 3 1-hour read
Yeah.
alouds in a day, every day, Sunlight curriculum. So, and then I incorporated Charlotte Mason, so that meant everybody was going to that could write would write for at least a page to show what
Mhm.
they knew or what they'd heard in that 1-hour reading. Like, I'm sorry, but that kind of borders on child abuse almost. Like, it's just a bit much. Maybe that's an overstatement, but it is trying to force down kids' throats or their minds something that it's just, are they really learning it? When
Right.
meanwhile they're trying to memorize passages of Shakespeare to put on plays in the backyard and set up the entire thing.
Yeah.
You're like, but that's your plan, so therefore it's not educational.
Yeah. That doesn't
It's
count
my
because that
plan,
wasn't on the
it's
list
education.
today.
Exactly. Much ado
Yeah.
about nothing? No.
Yeah.
Let's go back to exactly home science tools. We use that a lot.
Right. We're doing Hamlet. I said we're doing Hamlet.
Exactly.
You are not doing much to do about nothing. I don't care what you guys want to do. Yeah. Yeah,
No.
I know. I think that's really like the perfect though thing for when you first you get started, right? And then you think like you have to do all these things a certain way, and
Yeah.
then like you have to forgive yourself and like
Yeah.
I remember, sort of like explaining to my kids at one point, like, yeah, we're not going to do that book anymore. And it was this like, oh, because for my family, one of the books was the How to Teach Your Child to Read in 100
Yes.
Easy Lessons.
Yeah,
And
that's for
I
mom, not for the kids. Yeah.
I had heard
Yeah.
so many good things about that book from
Yeah.
so many people, and I thought, well, we'll try it, and we just hated it, and it felt stilted and
Yeah. Still.
weird and uncomfortable, and I thought, but your first thought, because you're inexperienced
Mhm.
and you wanna do the right thing,
And forget the
and
phonograms. You
you
also forget them. Yeah.
love your kids
Yeah.
so deeply, you're like, I just have to do this right. I have to do it right, even if it's painful and hard and awful. Like I have to. It's so important. And so you get caught up in that and you think like, okay, well, if this isn't working, I'm doing it wrong. Or my kids, like, oh, if they would just hold still, if they would just, whatever. Like we start putting it on our kids, we start putting it on ourselves, and we don't just think like, maybe this book just is not right for our family.
Right.
Maybe thousands and thousands of people can love a book and you can hate it,
Yeah.
and it's like anything else, with food or television or
Yeah.
movies or whatever, I mean, and so I think that's like sort of we have this starter stage that's like, woohoo, we're gonna do it all, and then if you're like me, you completely crash and burn and you put your
Yeah.
kid in
I did.
preschool.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Yeah, for 6 months because you're
Yeah.
like, no, this isn't gonna work. And then you realize how it's also not gonna work to send them to first grade. So then you go, okay, I'm gonna try again. So then you have a little bit of experience, but you still feel like it should work because everybody says it works for them. So if I can just, I think the promise of like, um, if I can just follow this recipe, I will get this beautiful picture,
Right.
in the cookbook. It'll
Yeah.
look exactly like this if I just follow the recipe. So We look
Yeah.
at the curriculum and it's like it's a recipe, and it's like, okay, so we just have to do 3 3-hour read alouds a day and 2 pages of writing, and this math program
I mean,
because
yeah, we haven't
so
spoken
and so
about.
swears by it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and and then we will get the perfect little cupcake child that turns out
Yeah,
perfectly with a
so
swirl on top.
back to
Yay!
that discussion
We
point
did
of
it.
creating a product. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. Yeah, there is no product. In fact, you don't get the manual before they're born, and you don't get the manual for their homeschool, and turns out you don't have, even a manual for all the things you're about to learn. Yeah,
Yeah.
because you're definitely
Yeah.
about to learn a few things.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was talking to a friend, and we were just saying how our kids both went to college and very different situations, but perfect for them.
Yeah.
And if we could have just gotten like a glimpse of that when they were little and been like, it's gonna be okay. Like the college that my son is going, I didn't even know the kind of stuff that I didn't even know it existed. I mean, he showed me his first semester schedule and I'm like, it's like you're majoring in being you, you know? I mean,
Really?
it was just
Okay.
exactly like him so much. I didn't even know that that was going to be an option. And, now he's there and it's great, but like, I wish I could go back and whisper told me like, there's going to be a school that you can't even dream up.
Right.
And he's going to get in and he's going to thrive there and it's going to be great. And yes, he's going to have struggles and, you're going to have to figure things out and everything else. But like in general,
It's
there's a path.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Like there's totally a path if you keep doing what you're doing, even though most days you feel like I don't do enough. I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing enough for them.
Yeah.
And
That part of parenting I find is not discussed enough, that I've done this twice now with 2 different kids, launching them into the world, or I
mhm,
say birthing them as adults. You just don't know that
mhm,
they are indeed gonna grow up, and it is gonna hurt like heck
yeah.
when you have to let them go. It hurts so much, even though you didn't stop being a mom, but everything just shifted. But
Mhm,
and it's one part of their life though, even wherever
mhm,
he's at and where my girls are now, they are in a space, or they're in part of their life doing something, but it could shift and move into all sorts of different things, just like we
yeah.
thought. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, again, like I think we homeschool with certain goals in mind, whether we realize it or not. We think like, okay, well, I have to make sure that they do, um, you know, 3 years of foreign language so that they can get into, whatever university they want type of thing. Or I have to make sure. And then, the other day, my daughter cooked something really amazing for dinner. And she was like, maybe I should go to culinary school. And it
Right.
was like, this is the same girl who last year, I'm trying to remember the timing of this, but everything has been so weird in 2020, was like, I'm going to be a forensic scientist. Like, I am
Yeah.
hardcore into this. Like, I'm going to learn everything. I mean, she knows so much about DNA and like all this stuff. And now she's like, maybe maybe I'll go to culinary school. And I'm like, maybe you
Right.
will,
Maybe they
you know,
will. The number of
because,
times, yeah, that I've chatted with people about, well, what direction should I go? I'm like, whoa down, ho down there. They're like, some
yeah.
people will talk about kindergarten, but to me, I'm like, they're just like entering high school. Just wait, like the last few months of high school
Mhm,
might clarify, but then they might change their majors, which turns
mhm.
out is a very common thing in the first year.
Yes.
Or they don't go to college and you absolutely
Mhm.
thought they would, or they go
Yeah.
to college and you absolutely thought they wouldn't. I have that one too. So,
Mhm.
you never really know. So you're not
Yeah.
really, your goal isn't to and do the end goal of where are they going to go to post-secondary school. It's bigger than that. And I wouldn't even say it's prepping them for life,
Mhm.
because I think, which I know is a common thing that people say, but it's not really
Mhm.
prepping them for life, because life, they have a lot of life after our home.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, most of it is,
Yeah.
after they're gone. And it's funny the things that as my son was heading off to school that I would think, oh, and I've got to tell him about this, and I've got to
Right.
tell him about this. And it was really funny. I went on a trip and we stayed in an Airbnb, and I had a high efficiency washer, stackable washer and dryer.
Yeah.
And we were at the beach. And so, but we only had a few towels. And so the stackable washer and dryer was in the closet in my bedroom. And so the first time I tried to figure this thing out, it was like the newest, and I'm like, I don't even know where to put like the stuff, and I don't know. And like the thing was up so high, and I'm tall, but I was like, I couldn't see it. So I didn't. And then, so my friend comes in, she's like, oh, you just do this, this, this. And I'm like, okay, all right, perfect. And so then we get down to college, and all the washers there are these like same one. And I'm like, I could have, I mean, he knows how to do laundry, but like he he doesn't know how to do this because this isn't what we have. And luckily I just happened to in August, like I went to California and met a high efficiency washer and dryer and the whole thing, and then was able to show him, and it took 45 seconds. But we feel like this huge pressure, like we have to prepare our kids for everything,
Right.
everything they're going to encounter. Like we're going to suddenly disappear the minute that they head
Or
out
they
into the
couldn't find it
world or
on Google.
something.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. Yeah, I
Yeah.
suppose I feel responsible though, because every once in a while, like we are naturally academic. I wasn't until I was married to my husband. No, I was before that. My husband is really smart. That's such a cliche thing to say, but he's an INTJ and he's a type 1 and he's a thinker. Like this guy thinks, he reads really deeply. And so he's taught me a lot. I feel like I've got an education right alongside him. And so we're naturally a very academic family. And when one of my kids doesn't remember or know something, I do feel responsible, even though I'm sure no school teacher feels responsible.
Right.
I still tell my 19 or my older kids, oh, wait, no, you spelled that wrong. Let me just tell you. And they're like, I'm fine, Mom. I'm like, right. Someone might judge me, but yes, it's fine.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Like again, if we sent our kids to public school, like, and they came home and they were like, I hate algebra, you would be like, yeah, me too. Like even though now I have a kid who like loves algebra
Yeah, I
because
have that one too.
I,
Not because of me.
he found somebody, at the very end of high school. And now he has a tutor, and his tutor helped him, get through like all that, the secondary algebra stuff and everything, and get him ready for some other higher level math and things like that. And now he's like, I love algebra, Mom. And I'm like, yeah, because like it wasn't taught to you by somebody who is like, you're never gonna need this. It was taught to him by somebody who's like intensely passionate about math.
Exactly.
And and we wouldn't have been able to do that early on, just financially. We my kids took a few music lessons, things like that, but like we couldn't have had a tutor early on. But then later on in life, like it worked out. And so he had a tutor who just, he learned so much math. And now my daughter works with the same tutor, and they're flying through math so much faster because they don't have a math phobic mom trying to teach them. And
I was just trying to figure out subtraction. I was so pleased by Steve Demi when he gave us that decimal street concept in math. You see, I'm like, oh, that's why there's only 9 in a cottage. And I don't know if you know this, but it's just basic subtraction or division, a long division. And I didn't actually understand what I was doing way back when, but it wasn't useful for me when I was trying to figure things out beside one of my kids. And not an upper level math. I would be very generous if I said whatever they were doing in grade 9 was upper level. Was for me. But when one of the kids, pretty much all 3 of the kids are pretty good at math, and my oldest was more like me, but they were really good at it, so they would show each other how to do it, and I found that actually was useful as well. Of course, they had other resources, but when they did that, they were explaining something, so then the other person would have to ask them questions that would kind of challenge, do you actually know it? And then they would know it and know it better because they could explain it. It was valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see. When you said something about your home is not a school, that you want to embrace your freedoms, sometimes you want to outsource or even include mentors. Tell me why, in your perspective, your home is not a school. Because I think it's a concept that it's hard to really know that in your soul until a few years later you realize kids are learning anyway, with or without your prescribed routine. So what would you say?
Yeah. Well, a big thing for me was I always wanted to be mom. I I have never referred to my kids as like my students. Some
Right.
people will
Yeah.
talk about their kids and
Your
be like,
husband, the prince.
my students are 5 and 7 and 9, and I've never felt comfortable doing that because I'm mom. I just wanted to be mom, and we're gonna learn together.
Right.
Like, which a lot of people would probably think that's a terrible plan. Like, you need to step up, you need to be a leader, you need to get a clipboard, you need to but for my personality, that doesn't work. And so instead, we have a learning environment in our home. We have books everywhere, we have learning materials everywhere, we always have. But when they were really teeny tiny, I was super inspired by Waldorf philosophy, and I wanted to, you know, everything on low shelves and like little baskets of play silks and pine cones and natural things and everything, just like this beautiful. And we got rid of I wanted to get rid of our TV in the living room. And my husband
Is a
works.
TV producer or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. And so he's like, TV? Like, if they call me and they're like, why are we in black right now? Or why are there color bars up on the screen? Or like, there's a, why isn't the thing showing up at the bottom of the screen saying whose name it is, or it's the wrong name or whatever? He's like, I kind of need a TV and like, for like my job. And so I thought, okay, well, this isn't gonna work. And so I realized, okay, you can create a learning environment without making it a classroom, and it can still be your home instead of being a school. And so that was just always really important to me, like a warm, welcoming, cozy, soft landing spot for my kids, that it was a safe place. um I just was talking to my son about this. There was this talk I used to do, and there's a quote from, oh, I can't remember now, but it was, life should be a series of adventures launched from a secure base.
Ooh.
And I was telling him about that because he said, coming back home is really nice now, like as a college kid,
Yeah.
because
There's
he's out,
food.
he's having, oh yeah, totally, right? And
Yeah.
he's having all these adventures, but he's like, I
Yeah.
also know that like I have a secure base, so like I can take risks because I know that I have a secure base to come back to. And so
Exactly.
I'm hoping that means that all of this worked,
Yeah. How will you know? That's actually a good question. How will you know if you did the thing you were supposed to do, or
Yeah.
even that good enough thing? Do you feel good enough? Well, how will you know if you're good enough? Like, what's the rubric?
Mhm.
What's the thing
Yeah,
you
I
need to?
know. I don't know. I think I will be a very, very old woman, and I'll still be like,
Yeah.
did we do everything? I mean, I know we didn't begin to do everything I wanted to do
Yeah.
and everything I thought we needed to do for a long time. But I mean, my kids are happy and healthy and emotionally, you know, healthy people. Um, and that was a big thing for me, was to see my kids as like whole people too. Like I didn't want to see
Yeah.
them just as like the academic, the student. I wanted to see them as a whole person. Like how are they doing? Are they getting outside? Are they, hanging out with their friends? Are they eating well? Or, it's a whole big picture instead of just, are they learning long division?
Yeah.
And, you know, and so I don't know if I'll ever feel like, because they're my kids, I mean, will we ever feel like we've done enough? I think we could give them like, 2 vacation homes and a fleet of cars, and it would still be like, yeah, but they only have one in-ground swimming pool. I don't know, like, there's just never
That's so funny.
there's just never, I mean, every time I see my son now, like I'm like, just take $20, like back to school, just take $40, and he's like, I'm fine, mom, I'm fine. And I'm like, no, 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 just take, because you just, yeah, I, I don't know. Motherhood is, I mean, it's the greatest gift in the world, but it's also just, there's, no way to know, like, so all you can do is just love them,
Yeah.
just love them with everything you got, just see them for who they are, just be
But
there.
I really love what you were talking about. You actually have a bunch of themes in your book that are things that I focus on in coaching, like our big emotions.
Mhm.
I approach it from that angle because I've learned you can't control someone else's big emotions, even if they feel
Right.
threatening or uncomfortable. But you can have a lot of impact on your entire family dynamic if you are engaging your own big emotions. So that, and self-compassion and building boundaries. And I know you spoke to a boundary discussion as well, but you spoke about how to speak to yourself and also how to speak to your children or not speak about them in public spaces in a way that would be, I guess, critical. Yeah.
Mhm.
Those
Yeah.
sorts of words.
I think, our thoughts really shape things. And so we can look at a day and we can say, we only got this done, or we can look at a day and say, we got this done, and so with our kids, when they're having a hard time, it's really easy to say, oh, this kid is just, he won't pay attention, or, she's talking, and complaining or whatever. And you can look at that, or you can look at, like, that's the tip of the iceberg, and that I didn't realize this until I went on one of those weird research rabbit holes that you go on when you're, because now everybody has a phone in their hand. So it's like
Are you an
everybody,
Enneagram 5 or?
everybody is a
Yeah.
librarian.
Yeah, that's the typical Enneagram 5 thing, is to go down a rabbit hole. Are you a 5?
Yeah. No,
No.
no, I'm a 9. So I'm a
Oh,
little bit of
okay.
all of
Yeah.
them, which is, you
Yeah.
know. But so yeah, I would go, I looked in icebergs, we only see the top 10%
Yeah.
of the iceberg, and there's 90% of it is down underwater. And so it's like, okay, so a kid, is doing handwriting and they throw a pencil, and you see that, and that's the top 10%. And so you see the behavior and you're like, oh, this kid throwing his pencil, and you're
Yeah.
getting all upset, and you're like, discipline, and I'm gonna call dad, and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And then you're like, wait, why?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, because, like, there's fear. There's
Right.
fear that they're not gonna get this. There's fear that, I mean, like, um,
Or they're
learning new
overwhelmed
things
by it, or so many
every
possibilities.
single day.
Yeah.
I always joke with people that I bought an instant pot on Black Friday because it was like a really good deal, and I didn't open it until Easter because I didn't know, like, how to do it, and I was so afraid of getting it wrong. And then, like, here our kids are every single day having to learn new things and try new things. And a kid, you can go, okay, why did that happen? But like you said, a big part of that is taking care of our own
And knowing why
emotional,
it's triggering us in the first place.
yeah, and our own,
Yeah.
mental health and physical health and everything else, which is why I love that you do so much around self-care. And I think that's so important
Yeah, that's
because,
born from my life. Yeah.
yeah, we've taken so
All of
much
it is.
on
Yeah.
and we need to invest in ourselves so that we can give back from a place where it's healthy. It's a healthy giving back. It's not just like a, you
Beholden.
know,
Yeah.
drain my soul from me. Just
So
kidding.
as
But
a
I
nine,
want it
I
to be
know
that.
you will because you are my second daughter. Not really. But so you're very easy to get along with, easy to hang out with, but you need space, right? Like you need separate.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I'm easy to get along with. I don't, you'd have to ask like my husband.
Well, yeah, that's a different
Is she
dynamic.
easy to get along with? But I tend to be on the outside very laid back and
Right.
easygoing.
Yes.
And on the inside, I'm like a hamster
Structure.
on like, you know, like 14 cans of Dr. Pepper or something. It's just like, but
Yeah.
on the outside, I'm like, oh, it's fine. Of course,
Yeah.
yeah, everything's fine. And on the inside, I'm just like, it's not fine. Yeah. So, but yeah, I definitely do need time and space. Like as an introvert, like you said,
Yeah.
it takes me time to recover. And we used to have co-op on Tuesdays, and luckily, my kids are both introverts because we would come home and we would just all be shot. And so for a little while, when they were really like when they were smaller and they still kind of needed like supervision, but like just everybody just wanted to chill out. We would make popcorn and watch a movie after co-op, so we could all just sort of go like,
Yeah.
you know. Um, but then as we got older, it was like we came home and one room and the door closed, and the next room and the door closed, and I went to my room and the door closed. And we all just like had a moment where it's like,
Yeah.
that was so much. Yeah.
You need to do
So
it. Yeah. Now
yeah.
imagine having extroverted kids. Because I was always in the middle, but I
Yeah.
have a couple extroverted that I'm like, no, I'm not doing that many play dates a week. I just can't.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't have that experience, but again, like you have to live your
Yeah.
experience, right? So it's like, some people will say like, like only having one kid, or it's like that has its own unique challenges having one child.
Oh, I
It,
think
it,
you would. Yeah.
and then I've always kind of joked that like I have two kids, so it's like one wants to go this way and one wants to go that way. But then if you have three, that's a different dynamic, a
Somebody's
totally
going to
different
go with
dynamic.
one of them. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you just have to sort of like live your situation and your scenario and um, do your best, within that, because it's not going to look like anyone else.
No, it really won't. It will look very different. And
Yeah.
that is, I think, the disadvantage of perpetuating this idea of this is the right way to homeschool, or here's the way to approach it. Because just like each of our children are so different, how we do our homeschool is going to look very different from one family to the other. And to me, I'm like, bring it. You do you. And then you allow as much as you can, allow yourself to be fully you so that you have the trust to allow your child to be fully them. And then
Yes.
you ain't gonna look the same as the next door neighbors. Well, our neighbors don't have any kids, but you know what I mean.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you're doing coaching to help people like figure out what works in their,
Yeah.
unique circumstances. I think we need as much encouragement as possible to like embrace who we are, embrace who our kids are, and our own situation. I mean, I look back now because I have a kid that just graduated and was away at college and stuff, and um, I was thinking about like there was a year when we had one car, and it was totally different than other homeschool years, and so it's like it really depends on the season that you're in. If you have little babies, if you have toddlers who you literally cannot let out of your sight.
Yep, I had one of those.
Yes, I did too. I did
And
too.
when I did, I called poison control.
Yes. Oh my
3
gosh, we had
times.
one of those things on our door, like that would go beep 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 if they opened the door, because it was like some kind of a kid like dash out into the
Yes.
wild. Yeah. Yeah. So, you have to, and so it's going to look different in different seasons. It's going to look different, depending on your family makeup. It's going to look different whether or not you have support. It's going to look
Yeah.
different whether or not you have, financially where you're at. Like there's so many things. So I think what you're doing is really important to help people in
Just
their own
embrace who you are.
individual like situation, to look at
Yeah.
it and be like, this is what I'm good at, this is what I'm not good at, this is what I don't want to do, this is what I can bring to the table. um I stink at playing. Like I was just never good at like getting down on the floor and being like, what does a walrus say to a rhinoceros? I don't know.
Do I
But like,
have to care? Yes.
yeah, I didn't mind cooking with my kids.
Yeah.
And so but there's a lot of people that are like, no, or like no glitter.
Yeah, I'm with that one.
There's the no glitter mom mob out there that's like, no glitter. And I'm like, oh, glitter makes everything better. So
Yeah.
yeah, you gotta do your thing.
So what is your next step then? Or what is the next thing that you're moving into?
I am taking a break from my blog and social media
Yeah.
for a little while. I work for a great company, and we're working hard on doing like big stuff right now. So I'm just gonna focus more on that. And it's a time of huge transition here,
Yeah.
because not only is my son going, he's gone now at college, but my daughter is going to start college dual enrollment classes
Yeah.
in January. So really, I'm not going to really be like, I'll technically be a homeschool mom, but like not
In
really.
here, always a homeschool.
Yeah.
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 I know
It's
that
going to be
feeling.
more about, sort of like helping facilitate her dual enrollment classes and
Yeah.
her online stuff. And,
Looks
she's
very
taking
different. Yeah.
Japanese with a, native speaker, and setting that up and making sure I pay for it.
The important part.
Yeah, so it's just changed. My role is changing a lot. So
Yeah.
I'm, instead of trying to sort of like figure it all out, I am right now, I'm just making space.
Yeah.
I'm just making space, and I'm just gonna sort of see what falls into those spaces. When you have little kids in your household, you don't have a lot of space, and
Yeah. Especially
so
certain kids. Yeah.
yeah. So I'm sort of looking at this as a gift, like, okay, I have a little bit of room now. Let's see what happens.
Exactly. It's the next thing. That's right. I've
Yeah.
been feeling like I've been moving into that since my oldest graduated from our homeschool when she went into grade 10. I forget what it was, but ever since then, it felt like it kept shifting every single year. And it turns out mothering isn't just mothering very young, very demanding kids, or a very demanding stage of kids. It's the entire spectrum, and it keeps going even after they
Yeah.
all leave, just differently. Just
Yeah.
differently. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And we just, again, that's where the flexibility comes in. We have to adapt. We have to figure out, what does this child need now, and how do you parent an adult? I'm
Yeah.
like, one of
Loosely.
my kids can vote. I'm like,
Back to that cactus thing. Loosely.
yeah, oh my goodness. Like,
Yeah, the voting angle. Yeah.
he can literally vote. Like, and
Yeah.
yeah, like,
Yeah.
where do I get off being like, have you had a good dinner lately? Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
Are you eating your vegetables?
yeah, but then on the other hand, it's like, but I want to make sure he's okay. And so it's a very interesting phase of parenting right now for me.
I loved what you said at the very back, or the very last thing you said is, here is the dirty little secret of homeschooling. All of us are scared, and here's all you need to know. You're scared because you care so much. So how could you possibly fail? And I'm like, ooh, beautiful, perfect. Exactly what we need to hear. And also believe, but that's a different discussion. Beautifully.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we are so invested, and I've been working, having a homeschool blog, working in the homeschool world, different jobs, speaking, meeting homeschool moms in person, podcasting, all that kind of stuff. And I have yet to meet a mom who isn't worried, but of course you're going to be worried because it's your kids, it's your, so of course you're going to be worried. So it's almost, they come up to you and they say like, I'm just so worried about this and I'm so worried about this and I'm so worried about this. And I'm like, well, then they're fine because look at how much you care.
Yeah.
I mean, look at how invested you are. They're
Yeah.
going to be fine. Even if you end up, like I said, I mean, one of my kids made up, I'm sure, a couple grades worth of advanced math in a very short period of
Uh-huh.
time because we
Uh-huh.
were finally like, we finally found the right person, So
Yeah.
it's like things like that. It it's gonna work out better. I'm trying to think who it is. Albert Einstein, I think, is like imagination is more important than knowledge.
Knowledge. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I think about how I could not even imagine where we are now when
Yeah.
my kids were little.
Yeah.
And I wish I'd had that that gift of imagination of seeing them just thrive. But instead what I had was the worry, I have to make it happen. I
Yeah.
have to do it. I have to push. I have to, me on me, like
Yeah.
invisible elephant crushing my chest at night.
Yeah.
And it's really not, looking back, like I I wish I hadn't worried so much. I wish I could have just had more. Should have known like they're gonna find their path and they're gonna be okay. And they're gonna be okay because you care. You're not gonna give up. Even if you send them to public school, you're not giving up. You're not giving up on your kids. You're just
Yeah.
doing a different educational method, which is
Yeah.
fine,
Exactly.
but you're not gonna give up. You're gonna be there and you're
Yeah.
gonna continue to be there. I think the biggest thing really is just it's showing up
And you
every
do.
day.
If you're a homeschool mom, you do.
Mhm. It's just showing up. And some days showing up looks like I'm going to put a big roll of paper on the dining room table and I'm going to find every marker in the house and I'm going to put it down there and I'm just going to let you draw and I'm going to sit in the bathroom and I'm going to eat Lindor truffles for a
Ooh,
few minutes,
that's what a wise choice.
because
But
because
good
I
on
am
trying to
at
find all the markers in
a
the house.
yeah, like I am at a breaking point, and
Yeah.
I need to just have a minute. And that's what showing up looks like is like, all right, uh, it's that hour between like, just waiting for your husband to get home or
Yeah, the
whatever.
arsenic hour
I'm
before
not saying like you have to show up every day wearing, your homeschool mom fancy, I don't know what, and
yoga pants.
pair a
Sorry,
pair of heels and you know
jeans are
your
fancy for
your
me.
pearls or something, you don't,
Yeah.
that's not showing up. Showing up is just being there and being human and modeling being human,
Yeah.
modeling forgiveness, modeling forgiving ourselves.
Yeah. Your children are blessed. Yeah, they really are. I very much appreciate, and I actually think the homeschool community is really blessed because your book just speaks so directly to the homeschool mom and the concerns that we feel, and with very funny stories and also very heartwarming stories. You really do connect us to that bigger or that veteran mom kind of energy that says you can do it. Even if you turn around and ask your friend, in the same day, I remember you saying, am I doing enough?
Yeah.
And you need to be encouraged too, that yes, you are too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've totally done that where a mom will email me and say, "Oh, I'm worried everything's falling apart. Oh no, what am I gonna do?" And I'll say, "You're doing great. You are doing great. It's great." And then I will like, box for my friend Colleen and be like, "This kid is never gonna learn math. I don't know what to do." And she'll say, "You're doing great. Everything's gonna be fine. It's gonna be
Yeah.
okay. Think about this, think about that." But we need people who remind us that like the key is to keep showing up, but that you can show up imperfectly. You can show up in your bathrobe. You can show up without your teeth brushed. You can show up however you need to show up.
Yeah. Been there, done
It's casual Friday every day.
that. It's a casual decade. In my
Yes,
experience.
yes, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. I really appreciate that. And
Thank
I'm excited
you.
for whatever happens because I know that in those
Yeah.
quiet pauses of our life or, elements of our decades, that's actually where we get the greatest sense of clarity of what we are planning to do next or what we want to do next. So come back and whatever you're going to do, I'm not going to try and imprint it. I remember you talking about certain things. I'm like, do that. You could do that. But, do whatever you're going to do and, allow yourself to be, I don't know if this is in your book, but be the compost. Was that a discussion in your book?
Oh, yeah, I think I talk about like if you could compost your worries, or there is something about compost.
There's something about
Yeah, about
I
letting
know.
go. I mean, there's a lot of heavy expectations, and if we can let those go and compost or recycle them or however you.
And compost often means that there's just a distilled amount of energy and nutrients that happen, and it sits there and it heats up and it decomposes, and then it becomes incredible fertilization for whatever the next garden is. So may these next few months be exactly that for you.
Oh, thank you so much.
I wish you compost.
Thank you. Thank you. I like that.